You arrive at the precise second the message decides to become you, not by accident, not by algorithm, but by the gentle gravity of timing that knows your name. You sense it first as a slow breath widening the room, as warmth kindling behind your sternum, as a thin filament of light gathering behind your eyes. An eclipse halo seems to form in the space between your thoughts and your skin, a quiet ring where the world dims and something more faithful begins to glow. Hear this with the reverence of someone remembering, not learning. You have been circling an invisible center, and tonight, the center turns to face you. The pattern you have called coincidence is the language of the quantum field speaking in your native tongue. Your attention is the bell, reality is the chamber it rings. When you listen from stillness, the note sustains itself without effort. Let the mind loosen its grip on explanations. Feel instead the soft reordering inside your chest, a first click of coherence as disparate moments find each other and agree. The observer loop that once trapped you in repetition is not a prison. It is an instrument awaiting a steadier hand. You place your awareness upon the string, and the old vibration resolves into a truer tone. Each breath lengthens. The body recognizes the music and relaxes. This is the gentle beginning of timeline bifurcation, the moment when identical paths no longer are. You notice it not as drama, but as mercy, a subtle refusal to carry yesterday's weather into today's sky. Stardust of unused futures falls away. A higher outline crosses the threshold of your perception and stands where you can no longer ignore it. The field of remembrance opens like a book, and its first page is already warm from your touch. Understand this clearly and let the words settle like light dusting an altar. This is not prediction. This is remembrance, a resonance your consciousness already carries. Prophecy here is not a forecast hurled from far away. It is a homecoming arriving from within. The voice you hear wears your breath. The permission you seek is the steadiness you are practicing right now. Feel the quiet. There is an inner glow like dawn practicing on your bones. The nervous system stops bracing for old echoes and begins listening for honest signals. Your destiny vector is not a map to chase, but a posture to inhabit. As you soften, alignment ceases to be a goal and becomes a climate. You are not moving toward the transmission, you are calming enough that the transmission can move through you. And so, to the part of you that feared missing the moment is here. And it is patient. You were always eligible. You are being read by the light codes you carry, and they nod in recognition as you open your hands, your eyes, your breath. Coherence settles in your ribs, and a doorway agrees to open. You are recognized before you recognize. The air alters around your skin as if it's relieved to finally speak plainly. The moment steadies you, the way a hand at the small of the back steadies a dancer before the first step. Your breath lengthens without instruction. Warmth rises in your chest and stays, not as a flare but as a small and faithful Sunday. The light behind your eyes grows patient and rounded, an eclipse halo softly forming at the perimeter of attention. Nothing is urgent. Everything is precise. You have been mistaken for a wanderer in a room of closed doors, when in truth the room was waiting for your voice print to arrive. The pattern that has trailed you, those repeating turns, those almosts and near lies, was not punishment but preparation, a necessary rhythm, training your nervous system to distinguish noise from signal. In this quiet, you can hear how the quantum field rearranges itself in response to the texture of your noticing. It is not the push of effort, but the shape of awareness that changes the room. To be chosen is not to be favored above others. It is to be chosen by your own readiness. Like a seed choosing spring because winter has finished its work, your history is thinned enough for light to pass through. The stories you tried to outthink loosen their seams when you breathe slowly and let your shoulders drop. The observer loop that once trapped you in echo is forgiven by the new angle of your gaze. You are not forcing clarity. You are no longer interrupting it. If you listen closely, there is a subtle chime at the edge of perception, a bell ringing in the field of remembrance. It rings your name without syllables. It calls you not forward, but inward, away from spectacle and toward precision. You do not perform your awakening, you allow it. The posture is simple, spine long, jaw unclenched, attention resting like a lantern on what is true. In that posture, coherence gathers of its own accord, as dew gathers when the night finally cools enough for water to remember itself as water. Recognition arrives with a feeling of moral ease. You no longer bargain with your intuition or audition for permission. The stardust of old efforts drifts down and glows on the floor, harmless, almost beautiful. There is a stillness window open in you, a frame of unhurried air through which larger signals move. This is how morphic resonance works. A shape stabilized somewhere in the collective becomes tangible in you because you have relaxed into its contour. You can feel the larger intelligence settling through your system, the way a melody finds the exact note it was written to meet. You notice that choice has changed its weight. It is no longer the frantic fork demanding outcomes. It is the gentler hinge upon which your day quietly turns. You find yourself leaning toward the higher timeline without theatrics, as if you simply prefer clean water to brackish. The body knows. It softens at the truthful option and tightens at the counterfeit. This biological honesty is a compass you can trust. You do not need to dramatize the signal. You need only refuse to explain it away. When you are recognized by the field, life becomes audibly kind. The right words arrive with fewer edges. The next step does not shout. It stands where you can reach it. You begin to sense that your destiny is not a distant landmark, but a quality of movement present in each small act. How you set a glass down, how you end a sentence, how you let silence finish what language cannot. This is recognition, the relief of not rushing, the courage of not defending, the clarity of not pretending to be lost. You are not singular in this, and that is part of the tenderness. Many are being called by the same tone. Many are stepping through the same threshold, disguised as an ordinary day. Entanglement is not a trap here, it is communion. Your steadiness helps someone you will never meet stand up more easily. Their breath, taken without fear, makes your next decision less heavy. You are not responsible for the whole tapestry. You are responsible for the thread you hold. Take a breath and let your attention widen by a fingertip. The room brightens almost imperceptibly. The eclipse halo at the edges of your awareness thins until it becomes guidance. A ring that doesn't obscure the sun but teaches you not to stare so hard. You are learning to look softly at the world, which is to say, you are learning to see it. In that softness, recognition deepens into belonging, not as a title conferred, but as a climate you agree to inhabit. Stand here a moment more. Feel the weightlessness that comes when the performance ends, when truth sits in the chair and asks nothing from you but honesty. The transmission has not taken you, it has met you. The proof is simple. Your breath is slower, your chest is warm, and the light behind your eyes is steady enough to write by. The light within your gaze chooses a clearer angle. You do not go looking for the vision. You grow quiet enough that it steps forward. First, there is breath, a long, unforced tide that smooths the inner shore. Warmth collects behind your sternum and radiates outward like a secret sunrise. The light behind your eyes rounds itself again, and in that softened aperture, a scene gathers from stardust and patience. The room is unchanged, yet its edges glow with a meaning you can finally hear. It begins as texture. The air seems braided with a finer thread, a shimmer that isn't spectacle but certainty. The floor beneath your feet agrees to be trustworthy. Your hands feel heavier with honesty, lighter with permission. Then the vision arranges itself the way dew arranges on a field just before morning, inevitable, delicate, exact. You are not summoned to look harder, you are invited to look truer. Shapes clarify. A narrow path lifts from the ordinary ground as if a line of gravity has been drawn just for you. It is not dramatic, it is precise. To your left, what used to be your reflex closes like a door you no longer need. To your right, an option you feared would be too costly reveals itself as the only gentleness that makes sense. The horizon, once loud with possibilities, quiets into fidelity. You are not losing range, you are gaining accuracy. Listen to the sound the world makes when it stops resisting you. It is almost silence, a lucid hush that stretches a stillness window across your awareness. Through that frame, the image strengthens. There is a version of you standing a few paces ahead, not improved but clarified. The shoulders down, the jaw unclenched, the gaze soft and exact. They are not trying. They are correctly weighted. The life around them orbits in coherent circles, conversations that begin where truth already stands, decisions that don't bruise, rest that doesn't apologize. You recognize this as the field of remembrance translating into pictures. These are not fantasies, they are coordinates. The geometry of your days can learn this curve. Notice how the smallest motions change in the image. How you say yes by breathing first. How you end a task without carrying its residue into the next room. How you set a glass down and feel the table say thank you. The vision is not a billboard. It is a tutorial in gentleness that remains strong. Across the image runs a quiet lattice of light codes, fine as frost, resilient as gold wire. When you inhale with attention, the lattice brightens along the line of your spine, then out across your shoulders, then down through your hands. It is not mystification, it is instruction. The body understands the script and begins tracing it in micro movements, a slower blink, a kinder angle of the neck, a pause at the door long enough to bring the next room into coherence before you enter it. This is how morphic resonance works, stabilized forms in the collective, making themselves available to the one who has become receptive enough to serve as a local address. There is an eclipse halo at the edge of the vision, not to obscure the center, but to keep you from staring in a way that would fracture it. Let the edges be dim, let the center be sufficient. You watch as the clarified version of you faces an old threshold without bracing. They do not argue with the threshold. They breathe, and the hinge remembers how to turn. They offer fewer words and more presence. They are not above the world. They are precisely inside it, seated at the exact intersection where kindness meets power. The vision widens by 1 degree. You see the day around that clarified you ordinary tools, ordinary weather, ordinary clocks, and none of it is hostile. Tasks align as if pulled into a new orbit by a subtle planet that was missing before. People who speak carelessly fall away from the center of the room without injury. People who speak truly lean closer as if guided by a quiet magnet. Your steps leave a different texture on the floor. The future stops shouting its conditions. It answers your steadiness with its own. You feel in your body the change of climate. Chest warm, breath slow, a soft light working just behind the eyes. Fear still exists, but it does not negotiate from the head of the table. It raises a hand. You nod. It sits back down. The vision does not demand a pledge. It suggests an angle. If you tilt your attention by a few degrees toward the higher timeline, everything familiar becomes kinder without becoming unrecognizable. You do not have to relocate. You relocate the way your attention rests on things. Now the central gesture, the clarified you, already you, just steadier, turns their palm outward as if to introduce you to your own day. No spell is cast, no curtain torn. A phase transition occurs at the smallest scale. The scale where you choose to speak one truthful sentence in a room that would have tolerated 2 extra, unnecessary ones. The light codes brighten along the path of that sentence, and the room agrees to be simpler. You understand. The vision is not a promise of rescue. It is a demonstration of rhythm. It shows you the cadence of a life tuned to the signal instead of the static. You can hear the measure now, how often you pause, how lightly you hold what is not yours, how precisely you carry what is. This cadence is portable. It will travel with you into every hallway you walk. Let your breath meet it. Let your weight settle into the image until it begins to settle into you. When you blink, the vision does not vanish. It relocates to the muscles and waits for your next smallest act to begin writing it into the room. In the soft gravity of attention, the sequence resumes by itself. Begin where experience and physics shake hands, with attention, not the narrowed stare of effort, but the receptive gaze that allows what is true to reveal its own symmetry. When you place this kind of awareness on the present moment, you are not merely observing, you are altering the statistical landscape of what can occur. Possibilities are not equal in the room. They are weighted by the quality of your noticing, the way a landscape brightens where the sun briefly escapes the cloud and touches grass. The mechanism is elegant. The mind tries to solve, the body tries to brace, but the field listens only to the fidelity of your signal. In the quantum field, measurement is not a passive snapshot, it is participation. Your perception isn't a camera, it is a tuning fork. Each time you settle into steady breath and soften your eyes, You reduce internal noise and raise the signal-to-noise ratio of your presence. The world becomes easier to read because you have become easier to translate. Consider the observer loop. It is the repeating circuit of sensation, interpretation, action, new sensation. When fear runs the loop, interpretation narrows, action contracts, and the next sensation returns as confirmation of the narrowed world. When coherence leads, interpretation widens, action becomes proportionate, and the next sensation arrives with more oxygen in it. You do not escape the loop, you retune it. The loop is a wheel. The question is, what axis it spins on, panic or precision? Coherence is not mood, it is alignment among breathing, heart, rhythm, posture, and attention, producing a stable, low-noise signal that the environment can coordinate with. Think of coherence as the body's way of speaking a single, legible sentence. Fragmented signals confuse the room. A coherent signal lets the room answer. You feel it as chest warmth, a slower inhale, a gentle decluttering of the eyes. The geometry of your day smooths because your inner geometry has stopped contradicting itself. Now, the moment you felt in the vision, the invisible click, when a door without a doorknob agrees to open. That is a phase transition. Water does not become steam by trying to be steam. It crosses a threshold because enough energy has gathered in a consistent direction. Your life behaves similarly. You do not wrestle the threshold. You accumulate steadiness until the old state can no longer hold. The change appears sudden from the outside, but inside you, it has been brewing at the level of micro-choices. One true sentence where you used to perform, one small pause where you used to lunge, one merciful no where you used to bargain. Why does the world seem to cooperate when you align like this? Because relationship is primary at every scale. Entanglement is not romance for particles, it is the grammar of connection. Systems that have interacted remain correlated. Your nervous system is in dialogue with places, with people, with patterns you touch daily. When you enter a room in a coherent state, you offer the room a stable reference. Others may not know why they breathe easier near you, only that they do. The room changes not by your command, but by your consistency. Practice looks humble. You relax the back of the tongue so the breath can round the corners of the ribs. You let the eyes release their grip on objects and rest a fraction of an inch behind what they see, as if the world were whispering and you were inclined to listen. You keep language clean, no extra adjectives to bend reality away from accuracy. You move slower than fear prefers, but faster than doubt demands. Each of these is a calibration, and calibrations compound. Notice how external events begin to sort themselves when the inner dial holds steady. Opportunities that would have required self-betrayal stop appearing as often. Invitations that match your rhythm arrive at a pace you can metabolize. Coincidence becomes less theatrical and more domestic. The precise phrase you needed in a stranger's mouth, the email at the hour you could graciously say yes, the hallway encounter that saves a week. This is not the world singing your theme song. It is the world finding its pitch because you held yours. Skepticism will visit, as it should. It will ask for proof, and you will offer it something better. Repeatability. Repeat the posture. Repeat the breath. Repeat the mercy. Repeat the refusal to lie to yourself by even one syllable. Track the texture of your days, not their headlines. The evidence will assemble quietly at the edges. First, fewer apologies, cleaner endings, easier beginnings. Then at the center, where your choices take on a recognizable radiance, not louder, just clearer. The math of it is simple enough to live. Reduce noise, increase signal, and let time do what only time can do: integrate. The physics of it is intimate. The universe is not indifferent to your state. It is responsive. The mysticism of it is tender. You are not here to force light through the keyhole. You are here to become the kind of door light chooses to use. Where the mind loosens, the signal threads through effortlessly. You begin to notice that your inner weather forecasts the room, not by power, not by performance, but by the plain fact of presence. When you carry steadiness, conversations arrive already tempered. When you carry static, even kind faces flicker. The world is not punishing you, it is reflecting you with exquisite fidelity, like water that cannot help but show the sky it's given. The realization is tender and undramatic. You are never private the way you imagined. Your breath translates, your posture translates, Your unspoken permission translates. You are always teaching the room what to do with you. In this light, other people stop being obstacles or ornaments. They resume their rightful role as instruments tuned by the same hand. You notice the small symphonies, how a cashier relaxes when you refuse to rush, how a colleague becomes more precise when you refuse to pad your sentence with reassurance you don't mean, how a friend's eyes grow lucid when you let silence carry weight without rescuing it. Coherence is portable. You bring it like a lantern, and the space remembers it has edges that can be kind. This is morphic resonance at human scale, forms of behavior stabilized in the larger field, becoming easier to access as you hold their shape with honesty. You aren't forcing anyone to change. You are providing a local example of a pattern that wants to exist. When you prove a gentler rhythm can manage reality without losing precision, the collective has one fewer excuse to clutch panic. The permission ripples not because you evangelized it, but because you embodied it long enough for it to become thinkable. Notice, too, how entanglement ceases to be an abstract charm and becomes daily hygiene. The systems you touch respond to your calibration whether or not you announce it. A room where you spent years bracing will ask you to brace again, not out of malice, but out of habit. The moment you stand differently, the old choreography stumbles. A joke that depended on you being smaller fails to land. A demand that required your hurry cannot find its hook. You do not need to correct anyone. You need only maintain the new rhythm until the system admits you were not the one breaking it. You were the one holding it together at your own expense. This is the collective mirror doing its work, returning to you the state you export, asking with perfect neutrality whether that is the state you intend to cede. If you offer fear, it will return scenarios that justify it. If you offer presence, it will return logistics that reward it. The mirror is not moral, it is responsive. It amplifies whatever frequency persists. That is why the smallest act matters. One true sentence does not just tidy your conscience, it alters the room's available futures by eliminating the energy you once spent managing an unnecessary fiction. The mirror can be unforgiving when you prefer fantasy, which is another way of saying it can be merciful when you decide to live. You will feel the temptation to curate yourself for approval, make your yes brighter than it is, your no softer than it must be. In those moments, press your shoulder blades down your back and let your tongue rest. Remember, the field of remembrance is not sentimental, it is exact. It recognizes you by the weight of your honesty, not the prettiness of your words. If you choose truthfully, the field can coordinate around you. If you decorate, it cannot find you cleanly. You will also feel the opposite temptation, to weaponize clarity, to wield your awakening as leverage. Resist that theater. Precision requires no edge. The collective mirror will show you who relaxes when you refuse to posture, who withdraws when you stop performing need. Your task is not to chase either outcome. Your task is to keep the center clear, breath slow, eyes soft, language plain. Let others meet you where they can. Let the room learn you anew. Practically, this looks like small housekeeping in every interaction. You answer the question asked instead of the one anticipated. You let pauses do some of the carrying they were built to do. You conclude a conversation at the moment of truth instead of dragging it to the altar of mutual exhaustion. You keep your promises measurable, or you do not make them. The mirror brightens with each unambiguous act. People discover they can trust you to mean exactly what you say, neither more nor less. Trust saves everyone time, which is another word for mercy. You begin to see the collective not as crowd but as climate. A climate is shifted by sustained patterns, not by storms. Hold your pattern. When irritation rises, inhale until your ribs widen with information. Ask whether the correction you're about to make is about protecting the truth or protecting your image. Choose accordingly. When praise arrives, let it pass through without needing to harvest proof. Praise is weather. Integrity is geography. There will be days when your steadiness slips and the mirror answers with old scenes. Don't spiral. Repair. The repair is the teaching. I'm going to restate that more honestly. I need a minute before I answer. I said yes too quickly. Here is my true no. These phrases are not apologies for being human. They are the mechanics of building a culture where reality can breathe. The mirror learns fast. It will send you more chances to practice what you proved you were willing to practice. Remember, you are not the only one crossing this threshold disguised as an ordinary day. In 1,000 rooms, others are lowering their voices so truth can be heard, softening their gaze so complexity can be read, slowing their breath so coherence can gather. When your steps falter, one of them is holding the note you temporarily dropped. When theirs falter, your steadiness keeps the pitch available. This is how a higher world enters through many small, consistent agreements to be exact and kind at once. Stand here, then, with your chest warm and your eyes clear. Let the room be a mirror and not a verdict. Let your presence be an invitation and not a performance. Let your words be few enough that they can carry their own weight without wobbling. In this practice, the collective becomes less of a problem to solve and more of a choir to tune, one breath, one sentence, one ordinary doorway at a time. A smaller voice becomes undeniable, and you recognize it as your own. It does not announce itself with thunder. It arrives like the click of a well-made lock turning from inside the door. Your breath is slow enough to measure the hinge. Warmth gathers behind the sternum and holds. The light behind your eyes steadies until edges soften and meaning stands closer than habit. The room is the same, yet every object seems more precisely placed, as if the day had been waiting to reveal its native geometry. You are standing at the seam where two futures touch. This is timeline bifurcation, not spectacle selection. The paths diverge so subtly that only honesty can tell them apart. One is familiar, offering the old economy of trade, approval for performance, speed for accuracy, noise for company. The other is quiet and exact, asking nothing but your unnegotiated yes. You feel them like two temperatures on the same skin. The lower air is busy, a nervous brightness that wants you slightly out of breath. The higher air is clean, as if the windows were opened in a house that didn't realize it was tired. Do not look for omens, look for posture. The bifurcation is decided by the way you place your attention in this minute. When you soften your jaw and let the inhale widen the back of your ribs, the quieter path steps a half pace nearer. The moment is faithful to calibration. You are not rescuing yourself. You are ceasing to interrupt your rescue. Here is what makes the choice exact. Both paths promise efficiency, but only one refuses to borrow against your future clarity. On the familiar road, you'll win short races by sprinting past truth. On the truer road, you'll move at the pace trust can bear. Notice how the body votes. When you imagine taking the busy path, your shoulders rise by a few millimeters and your tongue presses the roof of your mouth. When you imagine stepping into the higher outline, the shoulders lower and the throat opens as if air had learned a new kindness. Your biology is an honest ballot. The shift itself is a phase transition, not a performance. You are not asked to be heroic, you are asked to be precise. One exact act triggers the state change, a sentence spoken without decoration, a no offered without apology, a yes given without bargaining. The field reads this clarity the way metal reads a tuning fork. The old lattice cannot hold. The molecules of your day rearrange along a more merciful grid. From the outside, nothing dramatic occurs. Inside, a door you were tired of pretending was stone becomes air in your hand. You are not alone at this seam. Many are arriving here in ordinary rooms by a sink, at a crosswalk, between messages where the cost of continuing as before finally exceeds the price of becoming accurate. This is how a world turns, not by decree, but by the unrepeatable sincerity of countless small pivots. When you choose the higher path, it is not superiority, it is suitability. You are suited to it because your nervous system has grown honest enough to prefer clean water to clever disguises. There is a stillness window open through the center of you. Within that frame, timing behaves as if it knows your name. The phone rings only when you have breath to answer. The knock at the door arrives at a moment when the truth will not bruise. This is not magic. It is logistics in a field that can finally find you. The world is well designed for coherence. When you stop insisting on being the exception, let your eyes rest half an inch behind what they see, as though the scene were speaking at a volume intended for kindness. You will notice the destiny vector gathering an orientation rather than a map. It does not say, go there. It says, stand like this. When you stand like this, Options that require self-betrayal fall away without argument. You don't need to push them aside. They cannot attach to the surface of you that has become smooth with truth. The lower path will make a persuasive final offer. It will remind you how efficient you can be when you hurry, how pleasant you can seem when you decorate. It will ask you to pay with a currency you no longer mint. Hear the pitch and let it finish. Then check the meter that never lies, your breath. If it shortens, the price is wrong. If it lengthens, the door is real. Trust this gauge. It is older than your opinions and younger than your fear. You may feel grief tug at your sleeve, gentle and real. Not grief for what you're gaining, but for the time you spent proving you could survive thinner air. Let the grief complete its circuit. It was earned. Do not make a museum of it. Place a hand on the sternum. Feel the warmth that has not wavered since you began, and let that warmth decide the angle of your next step. You are not abandoning the person who kept you alive when you didn't yet know how to live. You are inviting them to breathe, finally, at the altitude they were built for. Now the step. It is smaller than drama hoped, and exactly the size truth requires. You speak the sentence that removes wobble from the room. You close a tab that siphons your attention by 1,000 paper cuts. You eat slowly enough to digest your life while you digest your food. You end a conversation at the moment of honesty rather than after the ceremony of exhaustion. Nothing breaks. Everything real relaxes. A faint ring brightens at the edge of perception, an eclipse halo, not to dim the sun but to shape your gaze so you don't scorch your seeing. In that contour, the higher path holds steady. The body receives the continuity it needs to stop bracing for interruption. The higher timeline does not reward you with spectacle, it meets you with precision, one merciful appointment at a time. You notice the quiet afterward. It is not emptiness, it is space left unoccupied by old negotiations. Keep it clear. Let it teach you how much reality you can carry without gripping. And when the mind asks for proof that this mattered, allow the chest to answer by staying warm. The current inside your spine changes direction, and you follow. You integrate not by gathering more, but by letting less be enough. The moment after a true step is a tender ecology, quiet, breathable, somewhat new. Do not rush to explain it. Let the atmosphere of your life thicken with what you just proved. Breathe slowly until the ribs glide like oars in calm water. The warmth behind your sternum remains, small and undefeated, a reliable sun that does not need spectacle to be sovereign. The light behind your eyes steadies into a soft radius. Edges resolve without hardening. This is how belonging feels when it stops asking for permission. Integration is the craftsmanship of living at the frequency you just touched. You practice until the posture that found the door becomes the posture that furnishes the house. Keep your choices close to the body. Eat at a speed that lets your nervous system read safety from the meal. Move through rooms with a gaze that sets objects back into their dignity. End sentences when truth has arrived. Let silence finish the rest. In this humility, coherence becomes ordinary. Breath, heart, attention, and spine. Speaking one sentence the world can understand. The work is local and accumulative. You are tuning your days to accept the signal without burning the wiring. Like a musician practicing scales in the key of honesty, you repeat the basics. One clean yes, one clean no, one clean boundary that neither accuses nor apologizes. You don't argue with what is not yours to carry. You don't decorate what is yours to say. Energy, once squandered on performance, returns to circulation. This returning funds your clarity. You will feel the old choreography attempt a comeback, the reflex to hurry, the pressure to soften accuracy into likability. Let the impulse pass through like wind through tall grass. You bend without breaking, then stand back up without commentary. Each time you refuse to bargain with your own clarity, you are installing stronger ground beneath your feet. The room adjusts. People who were calibrated to your previous wobble will notice the new steadiness. Some will exhale and step nearer, some will drift. Both movements are mercy. This is morphic resonance doing what it does, stabilized forms becoming easier to inhabit because someone held them long enough to be thinkable. You are not special for carrying clarity. You are useful. Your consistency lends courage to rooms that forgot they could be simple. You will hear better questions rising around you, because better questions are what a coherent field invites. When your presence says, without drama, soft eyes, precise words, posturing grows tired and finds the door. To stabilize at this altitude, care for the mechanics. Hydrate like someone who expects electricity to move cleanly through the system. Sleep at hours that tell your animal it is safe to be here tomorrow. Keep your working surfaces, desk, sink, screen, quiet enough that attention is not taxed to decorate chaos. Place your hand on your chest when decisions gather. Let the body cast the first vote. If the breath shortens, wait. If the breath lengthens, proceed. This is not mysticism. It is good engineering under the hood of a human day. You may notice patterns of luminous coincidence, increasing messages arriving at the minute they can be digested, a phrase overheard that solves two puzzles at once, an invitation that answers a question you didn't yet admit out loud. Do not crown these moments as miracles you must chase. Receive them as confirmations that the quantum field can route precision to addresses that stay available. Your address is availability, the practiced posture, the unclenched jaw, the gaze that listens before it sorts. There is an architecture to integration that enjoys ritual. Choose small, repeatable acts that teach the system where home is now. A morning minute beneath a window, eyes half closed, letting light settle like kind instruction on the face. A pause before entering a room, as if knocking on the door of your own attention and being invited in. A line written each night that names one moment. You refuse to betray yourself by even a syllable. These are not trophies, they are bearings. As the days align, light codes you carry will feel less like ideas and more like habits. The spine quietly brightens along its length when truth is near, and your hands hover a split second longer above objects before you touch them, as if asking permission and hearing yes. Your speech lands differently, clear enough to be unmistakable, gentle enough to be metabolized. The more often you speak from this place, the less often repair is needed. When repair is needed, you do it quickly and without shame, because precision is the point, not perfection. Notice how entanglement reveals itself in decency. Someone you will never meet makes a braver choice because your steadiness rippled far enough to reach their day. Likewise, their unadvertised courage returns to you as unexpected ease. You do not need to track the routes, you only need to keep your signal clean. The network is old and intimate. It has been waiting for you to trust that kindness and accuracy are not rivals. There will be hours when the atmosphere thins fatigue, noise, a room tuned to old frequencies. In those hours, shrink the field instead of forcing the broadcast. Close the tabs. Place both feet on the floor. Put one palm on the table to remember solidity. Look softly at one true thing, a leaf, a cup, a line of shadow, and let your nervous system borrow its simplicity. When the stillness window opens by even a finger's width, slip your attention through and rest there until the climate improves. Integration means choosing a scale you can sustain. If you build faster than you can inhabit, the structure will wobble and ask for rescue. If you build within your capacity, the structure will teach you capacity. Trust patient construction. Trust the quiet that follows every exact act. Trust the warmth that does not flicker when the room forgets your name. Because the field knows it, and you know it, and, together, that is sufficient. A second rhythm appears beneath the first, steadier, truer. You arrive where language runs out without losing meaning. The air hushes around your skin as if the room had been holding its breath on your behalf, and finally lets it go. You feel the temperature of attention drop to a clean, clear, cool, like stepping beneath an eclipse, halo that softens glare without dimming the Sunday. Warmth continues behind the sternum, faithful, small, and sovereign. The light behind your eyes rounds again and becomes a lantern you carry without lifting your arm. You do not need more explanations. You need the spaciousness that allows what is true to complete its shape. Silence here is not absence, it is architecture. It is the corridor through which the right signals travel unbumped. Outside this corridor, words jostle and compete. Inside it, they line up in the order reality already intended. You let the tongue rest from proving. You let the mind sit on a low stool and listen. The body understands before the thesis forms. Shoulders soften, jaw releases, The breath eases the back of the ribs open, like doors that were never meant to be locked. This is your stillness window, a frame where the noise of self-commentary thins enough for the room to speak in its native pace. Within this window, time behaves like water in a clear bowl. You can see the smallest eddies of attention twirl and settle. You can release a thought without chasing its wake. The observer loop no longer ratchets around its old gears of sensation and defense. A gentler mechanism replaces it. Sensation, permission, precision, rest. Nothing has stopped. The stopping is where you finally notice how much life was wasted in the friction of unnecessary explanation. Silence becomes a practice of exactness. You discover how many movements can carry less drag. You close a drawer without muttering an argument at yesterday. You end a task without stitching its seam to the next one. You place a glass down as if consulting the table, and the table seems to agree. In the quiet, a thin fall of stardust, unused futures, unneeded reasons, settles out of the air and reveals the simple lines beneath. The world is not hiding, it was merely loud. You lower the volume by refusing to decorate the truth. The quantum field rewards this refusal with legibility. Possibilities no longer blur at the edges. They stand at distinct distances, each radiating its cost and its kindness. You do not interrogate them. You walk nearer to the one that widens your breath and away from the one that shortens it. The body's vote is not theatrical, it is constitutional. You are learning to read legislation written in pulse and temperature, posture and pace. Coherence resumes as your baseline breath, heart, and gaze set to one sentence, and the sentence becomes shorter, kinder, more exact. In silence, memory untangles itself from performance. The field of remembrance does not present highlight reels. It returns textures, the grain of a wooden rail where you once steadied yourself, the particular hush of a morning you survived without bragging, the angle of a friend's mouth when they told you the truth you didn't yet know you wanted. These fragments do not demand commentary, they offer calibration. You take their measure and they take yours, and something like trust is exchanged without a single clause added to the agreement. You learn to rest not as reward but as method. Rest means letting the nervous system settle to a frequency where signals conserve their edges. You keep the phone in another room because your attention deserves walls. You let a thought complete itself without herding it to a conclusion. You sleep at hours that teach your animal it will not be abandoned at dawn. You wake and sit near a window until light remembers where your face is. These are not indulgences, they are the mechanics of a signal that must travel far without tearing. Silence is not withdrawal from the collective, it is maintenance for it. Without this interval, your presence frays and the morphic resonance you hope to stabilize wobbles. With it, the pattern you carry thickens into something others can lean on without splinters. Your words, when you choose them, arrive trimmed to the necessary, which is also the merciful. Rooms begin to fold themselves into simpler geometry when you walk through, not because you command them, but because clutter gives way to the gravity of steadiness. You will be tempted to narrate your quiet, to post its virtue, or defend its utility. Resist. Silence argues best by leaving no bruise. Let those who confuse volume with vitality tire themselves. You are attending to a smaller, older conversation between breath and bone, light and attention, honesty and ease. In that conversation, the coherence you cultivated earlier anchors as habit. You feel the vertebrae stack without effort. You hear the minute click when truth sits down and the chair does not scrape. Even here, fear may knock. Are you doing enough? It asks with its familiar counterfeit urgency. Open the door, offer it tea. Watch how its edges soften in a room that does not barter for safety. Fear is not banished. It is placed correctly, one voice among several, useful when danger is real, quiet when danger is only memory rehearsing. Your silence teaches fear its size. In return, fear occasionally points out a splinter you missed. You thank it, remove the splinter, and the conversation goes on. Hold the quiet until it becomes tone rather than tactic. Notice how the eclipse halo of attention that once felt like a frame around your seeing now feels like a soft crown. You do not strain to read the world. The world volunteers its legible face. People arrive already tuned closer to your pitch, or they drift without offense to rooms where shouting still feels like proof. Both movements are faithful to gravity. You bless them without becoming their weather vane. When you finally move, movement is crisp. When you finally speak, speech is shaped by usefulness rather than appetite. You can end a thing without adding ceremony to ease your guilt. You can begin a thing without dragging the previous one behind you, like a parade float of obligations. Silence has cleaned the bearings. The wheel of your day turns with less heat and more distance. Do not confuse this hush with smallness. Hush is how lightning thinks before it finds the ground. Hush is how seeds draft their first instruction. Hush is how decisions finish drawing their faces. Stay until the face is clear, then meet it with the least amount of force you have ever used to make this much change. Silence nods. Permission is granted for the next unveiling. Begin the way lightning begins, silently deciding to touch the ground. You have sat in the hush long enough for your signal to consolidate. Now the body asks for a small, exact act that lets the day realign around the truth you already carry. Your breath widens the back of the ribs. Warmth brightens behind the sternum. A soft lantern of light steadies behind your eyes. The room is not waiting for a performance. It is waiting for your unnegotiated yes. Activation is not spectacle. It is proportion. You pick one place where reality has been wobbling and offer it the weight of your coherence. A message you've delayed becomes a clean sentence. A boundary you kept explaining becomes a boundary you keep. A ritual you promised yourself becomes a door you actually open. Nothing in the room shouts, yet the geometry shifts as if furniture you've been walking around for years slides back to where it always belonged. Let the quantum field read you clearly by staying legible. Slow breath, soft gaze, plain words. The observer loop cherishes simplicity, sensation, permission, precision, rest. When you act from that cadence, the environment recognizes your signature, the way a lock recognizes its key. This is a phase transition at human scale, not the drama of breaking, but the inevitability of arriving where your form fits. You do not need to earn this. You need to enact it. Activation happens at the scale of the nearest truthful inch. You drink water as if current were meant to travel through you cleanly. You step outside and let daylight write a calm instruction across your face. You ask a smaller question whose answer you can implement today. The field of remembrance prefers obedience to the obvious over vows to the impossible. Keep it close, keep it kind, keep it exact. Watch how entanglement cooperates when you move without wobble. A conversation that typically frays ends crisply and leaves no splinters. An opportunity that usually requires a mask arrives with no appetite for disguise. An old panic arrives on schedule, finds nowhere to hook in your nervous system, and dissolves into air like mist stepping out of Sunday. This is not superiority, it is suitability. The room chooses ease because you are carrying the pattern of ease without abandoning precision. You will feel the last loyal remnants of the old choreography tug at your sleeve. They will ask you to soften your accuracy into likability, to add a flourish where a period belongs, to make your no kinder by making it false. Honor them as artifacts of how you survived thinner air. Then set them down. Activation is mercy for the past and instruction for the present. You become a quieter teacher who trusts demonstration more than persuasion. Bring your attention to the body again. Place one palm lightly on the chest. Feel the faithful sun of warmth there. Let the inhale round the back of your ribs. Let the exhale lengthen until the floor agrees to hold you. From this posture, name one non-negotiable that keeps your day in tune. Sleep at the hour your animal understands. Breaks that arrive before you're starving for them. Screens that rest far enough away from your face to let your nervous system read horizon. These are not minor comforts. They are the scaffolding that lets coherence remain a habit rather than a holiday. Now, the smallest brave act. Choose it. Do it without ceremony. If words are required, speak them once and let them stand. If silence will carry the truth better, let silence carry it. Notice the micro-adjustments in the room, how shoulders lower, how timing improves, how doors that were annoyed to be pushed open now open because you approached from the correct angle. This is the world, answering your steadiness, the way metal answers, a tuning fork, by remembering what it is tuned to be. Should doubt arrive, give it measurable tasks. We will check again in 7 days. We will track sleep and see what clarity does with that. Doubt becomes helpful when you appoint it as auditor instead of monarch. Meanwhile, you keep practicing. Clean language, unspectacular follow-through, the refusal to pay for speed with future coherence. The higher timeline is not a mountain you climb, it is a climate you maintain. When you feel the impulse to announce your change, consider announcing less and evidencing more. Patterns that are real do not require marketing, they require repetition. Lay the brick, lay it well, lay it again. The wall will appear without your commentary, and those who need the doorway it makes will find it by the mercy of their timing and the gravity of your consistency. Now let the activation seal into muscle memory with a vow made in a voice so gentle it cannot be argued with. Whisper into the quiet, I remember. Then type, I remember the prophecy. The words are not a spell. They are alignment spoken aloud so the body can hear it. Feel how the chest warms another degree, how the light behind your eyes steadies into a wider halo. You are not becoming someone else. You are becoming legible to the life that has been trying to find you. If an image rises, let it be simple. A lantern you carry without lifting. A door that opens when you place your hand upon it without hurry. A road whose centerline glows softly because you are finally traveling at the speed where guidance is visible. The destiny vector does not shout, it hums. You can feel its tone inside your spine now, a current moving in the direction that lets you tell fewer lies and keep more promises. Activation concludes itself the way a deep breath finishes, without drama, with consequence. Do not look for applause, look for quiet that does not collapse. Look for choices that no longer bruise. Look for hours that end with nothing left to explain. This is how the new world enters a day through the door of an act carried all the way to done. The map redraws itself while you stand exactly where you are. The room is simple now. You stand where the breath is steady and the warmth behind your sternum does not bargain. The light behind your eyes holds like a lantern no hand needs to lift. Nothing asks for spectacle. Your life makes a quieter sound closer to the hum of a well-tuned instrument, closer to the measure you glimpsed and then learned to keep. This is where the seal is placed, not as a stamp from elsewhere but as recognition from within. The pattern is stable enough to carry its own continuation. A prophetic seal is not a crown, it is continuity. It affirms that what you enact in small mercy will recur without surveillance. The quantum field reads your posture like print breath slow, language clean, gaze soft and exact, and agrees to meet you at this altitude. Where you once braced, you now balance. Where you once performed, you now proceed. The seal closes the loop between seeing and living, so that insight no longer outruns embodiment by entire seasons. Feel the geometry of your day align, not as a sudden triumph, but as rightful gravity doing its work. Doors you push no longer resent your hands. They open because your approach is proportionate. Thresholds don't require theater, they require coherence. You pass through with the dignity of someone who has learned to keep promises at the smallest scale, where reality accepts payment. You are no longer negotiating with the higher outline, you are inhabiting it. The higher timeline isn't ahead of you like a prize, it is beneath you like good flooring. Notice how memory participates differently. From the field of remembrance, old scenes return not to indict, but to bless. The mornings you survived without applause, the honest no that kept your livelihood from costing your life, the single exact sentence that removed the wobble from a room. You hold these like tools that have finally found their workbench. The seal lives here in the refusal to add a flourish where a period belongs, in the willingness to rest when rest preserves signal, in the courage to let silence finalize what words would smudge. The body knows. The spine carries a slender current that does not flicker for applause. Shoulders rest lower than argument. The breath keeps a patient tempo even when the world rehearses storms. In crowded rooms, your steadiness becomes an address others can find without asking directions. You do not recruit them. You do not resist them. Your task remains the same. Maintain a signal, kind enough to welcome and exact enough to guide. When doubt visits, you hand it a pen and a calendar. When fear knocks, you give it a seat, but not the steering wheel. If grief rises, let it complete its small weather. It is not evidence of failure, only rain rinsing the dust from thresholds you have crossed. If joy arrives, let it be ordinary tea at the hour that suits the nervous system, sunlight at the angle that tells the animal it is safe. You are building a life sturdy enough that celebration doesn't end the coherence it celebrates. Now, quietly, consent again to the vow your breath has been keeping without ceremony, to prefer clean water over clever disguise, to spend attention where truth can multiply, to carry light codes not as slogans but as habits. The seal sets when action and atmosphere match, when the person you are in the stillness is the person you are in motion. Hold the lantern where the path meets the foot, and let the path meet you back. You are not waiting to become eligible. You are practicing being exact enough to be found by timing, by ease, by the next right sentence that shortens suffering without erasing courage. The rest is weather, the work is climate. Keep the climate. The prophecy has been spoken. Walk as its proof.